Generation Zero is a game I've enjoyed for a very long time, and genuinely seems to be a somewhat underappreciated game. While it has received relatively good views overall, and has been out for a longer term, at least in terms of games, the game has garnered mostly positive reviews overall, and for good reason, as there always was a level of polish to the game, though it was still extremely broken at times. Though this is my podium, and since I have your attention for a while, I might as well tell you why I love this game so dearly, and perhaps teach you about some of the history of it, and certainly some of the lore while we're at it. Generation Zero is a game developed by Systemic Reaction, formerly known primarily as Avalanche Studios, though after some time Systemic Reaction took the full mantle as developer, though it is unlikely that the dev team actually changed in any meaningful way, as Systemic Reaction is the studio that is a part of Avalanche Studios. Announced in 2018, the closed beta test took place sometime in late 2018, with some of the coverage by YouTubers playing the closed beta test releasing in October of that year. Though it is highly likely that the beta tests were taking place earlier than that, I am unaware of by how much. From some of the videos that took place around that time, it was still a very highly atmospheric game that had a fairly decent level of polish, though there were still some fairly game-breaking moments because it was a beta test. That was to be expected. Generation Zero is a open-world survival horror-esque game with elements of crafting in it, and its main story, or at least what I'll tell you for now about it, is fairly simple. In 1980 Sweden, AI known as Phoenix takes control of what are seemingly defense robots, and seemingly kills, at least in the initial state of the game, the entire population of Sweden, though in some cases it is seemingly as though you are simply seconds too late to help. Though later in the game, after the 2 DLCs are added, this does change to an extent. You play as a Swedish teenager who has been away with friends on a separate island, likely having a party, and are returning home. In the original opening cutscene, you saw a flash of orange and something arcing towards your boat, a rocket-propelled mortar. Your boat is hit, and you wash up on land, near a house with nobody home, or at least nobody living. In the closed beta, and up until after the DLCs, if you don't count the DLCs at least, there were no interactable living beings, though after the DLCs there are a few characters added. One, a young woman by the name of Therese, hiding out in the church who you hope you get the materials to help heal, and you also find an old hunting shotgun in the bell tower of, to help defend yourself. She, being an MCC, does not come and help fight with you. You proceed forwards through a few quests teaching you about the machines that were built in. Some you can take on, and some you had best avoid. Now seems the best time to tell you about the opponents you are facing. At least the ones that don't get added later in life of the game. Those you don't have to worry about yet. Those, while having a story, don't really play a true role in the story of the game, primarily being added as the player base wanted more than just the same opponents to fight against. There are 6 machine types you fight, separated into 3 classes in the base game, with 1 additional class being added in a main story DLC, of which the game has 2. As such, I'll introduce that 4th class when it is pertinent. The 6 types of bots operated by Phoenix are as follows, in rough size order from the smallest to the largest. The Tick, the Seeker, the Runner, the Hunter, the Harvester, and the Tank. Quite menacing names on the last 3 of them, aren't they? On top of all of this, there are 4 classes of bots we have to worry about, though the 4th class of bots I will touch on later when it becomes relevant to the story. The first part of the game, we only have to worry about 1 primary type of class, with 2 types of bots primarily showing up there, though there are 2 occurrences of a 3rd bot type showing up, with a few sparse occurrences of the next class up. The classes are as follows: Military, Prototype, and Phoenix class, with Prototype being the lowest class, Military being the middle class, and Phoenix being the highest class. Where the tutorial takes place, you primarily see Prototype runners, more often than not referred to as dogs due to the nature of their shape. In this area are primarily of the Prototype class, though there are 2 spots where you will encounter Military class dogs. Prototype dogs are relatively weak, with their fuel canister fully exposed and a small automatic weapon on their back. This is likely chambered in 32 ACP, automatic Colt pistol, as in the original state of the game, that was the only ammo you could get off of them, likely indicating that was the ammo they used. However, this was changed later in life to drop whatever ammunition you were used for the sake of gameplay. Military dogs can have that same gun, however, they can have a shotgun as well. They're not any faster than prototype dogs, but they are slightly more heavily armored. We've got ticks, small, poorly armored, and don't really take a hit regardless of class, and can be deployed from higher classes of hunters as well as tanks and harvesters. There are 2 classes of hunters that you can see on this starting island, and while they may be of prototype class, they are still highly dangerous, sporting good armor, few obvious weak points beyond the tank that is on its back. However, unlike the dogs that can die when you destroy the tank on their back, hunters require more damage to be dealt to them. Sporting speed that is just as fast, if not faster than your sprint speed, a large detection radius, and deadly firepower, it is clear just what they are the hunter of. As a surprise, the 4th bot type I forgot to mention, we have the Seeker. It's pretty simple. All the bots hear you as well as see you, and as such can be lured by large noises. Some lures you use, and others are another bot designed to call bots towards people, just like you. Classes don't make much of a difference in terms of capabilities, mostly armor and lure range. Now that we know the roster and the beginning of the story, as it shows recently, let's talk about what the beta testing experience of this was, and the beginning of the game post-beta. It was relatively rough and buggy, which, yeah, that happens. One of the hunter occurrences were not around yet, though the military runner encounter still was. However, to progress in some of the early missions, it required to destroy bots for barcodes to gain entry to a bunker, something that did quite frequently bug out. Though this did get fixed to an extent, though there were still several bugs post-beta. Now, you progress from the archipelago region into the farmlands. This is where you get dangerous. There are hunters everywhere, and unlike in the previous region where they are alone, they're in packs now, and are certainly something to be avoided. But when you sneak past those and you head towards the big strip on the map, you look into it through binos, and now in the current version of the game, it is still incredibly dangerous, but in the early stages of the game, it was nightmarish. This airfield is designed to teach you one thing, and one thing only: to sneak. Well, that and probably through a bug or two had it far worse, but the airfield is the second region you spawn in. Well, spawn in meaning you go to. You see every single class of machine sans prototype, and the final 4th type as well. Most often, you see military or Phoenix class, and it's not just dogs or hunters. It's tanks and harvesters too. So I suppose it's time to tell you what a tank and a harvester actually is. Starting with, in my personal opinion, the less scary of the two. The tank. Well, it sounds amusing I'm calling the tank less dangerous. Save for one special variant of the tank we'll talk about later, they're not actually too bad. Well armored, well gunned, but poor mobility and buildings make them significantly easier to fight because, well, walls kind of protect you from the rocket launcher and autocannon they have, with that being the primary concerns with them. They do significant damage, and if in the open, need to close distance, or without weapons, they will charge at you. This is terrifying. They deal damage if close to you by stomping or by, well, running towards you, and they have really good health. While it is still very doable to kill them if you shoot the external tanks and, shoot off weapons and damage them a lot, it just takes a lot of ammunition. Tanks, regardless of class, primarily have the same armament, being a railgun or an autocannon with rockets, though the effects on the cannons might be a little different, with the Phoenix class being incendiary. Now for the Harvester. This one is scary, as even from a prototype class they have an enormous health pool and are able to summon hunters as an assistance in defending themselves. While the Harvester does not have a cannon, the object you see in the front that is presumed to be a drill of some form. It does have rocket pods it will volley at you, and is something best to avoid, as well as the higher classes have more deadly hunters that they can spawn, as well as more hunters they can spawn. Mil class spawns the military class ones, Phoenix class spawns the Phoenix class, and the next one spawns the same of its class. We'll get to that in a moment. The missions were buggy in the beta, and thus some of the things you're supposed to get from quests and the completion of quests was difficult to say the least, though still doable. And this is where we leave the beta/early access testing and move to the main game. Early on, it still had its bugs, and they weren't small ones, but they did genuinely try to fix them. The game was still exceptional in terms of environmental storytelling. It was amazing, with some traditional storytelling presence in the form of radios and answering machines to read and listen to, as well as a few radio logs. Now we get to that final class, as about here in terms of story, perhaps a bit more geared because it's dangerous there, we get into the first story DLC, Alpine Unrest, as this is where I feel it fits best into the story. This DLC was huge because it had a whole new class of robots, and something special. It had Apocalypse class machines. Sounds menacing, eh? But first, let me just play the trailer for you, as I feel the trailer does a far better job of explaining some of the story of this than I ever could.
It's December 1989, in the desolate forests and hills of the Swedish countryside. A month has passed since the population vanished overnight, replaced by hostile machines that shoot anyone on sight. You've explored the grim open world alone and with friends, sticking to the shadows to scavenge for equipment and weapons in your attempt to stay alive. Like us, you fled when you've been seen, and only through clever tactics have you managed to take down a few machines. During your travels, you've started unraveling the mystery behind Phoenix, and it has now led you to Himfjäll, an unexplored island off the east coast. It seems to be covered in machines even more lethal than before, but you're also finding new weapons and something perhaps more valuable. Those of us who managed to survive. Together, we might yet find the answers we seek.
Apocalypse class is nightmarish. They're radioactive, leading to a distinctive additional sound whenever one is nearby. Each of the bullets deal a radioactive damage over time effect, and each rocket shot by tanks and harvesters leave an AoE of damage. But they aren't the scariest. Well, the harvester is, but not because of the damage it can do, nor is it because of the armor on it, but rather the hunters that they spawn. They're fast, they have a long-range cannon, they can jump you and stab you, like all hunters can, and best of all, they have a flamethrower. And it is incredibly tanky fast and incredible DPS, and Apocalypse class harvesters can spawn 4 of them. But this island, known as Himfjäll, was a former snow resort, with a very nice hotel on it. A hotel that happens to have a surprise in it. But as you proceed into the area across the water from the island, you find a warehouse with surprise, a no longer living person, and a walkie-talkie, as well as a mission called Not Alone, with a person talking on the other end of that walkie-talkie. This was huge when it released, though you don't know much yet. For all you know, it could be a trick by the bots. So you make your way to the resort, clear the bots from the upper floors as they're hiding in the wine cellar. It's a fancy resort. They unlock the door and you go down, seeing the first people you ever see. Well, at least until the more recent versions of the game. Anita is someone you hear in the form of some of the answering machines. A pilot of a Saab Viggen, as many are seen shot down, who worked at the castle where you find one of the hunters who is seen in tutorial of the game, who was later shot down, presumably by an Apocalypse class tank. She's the de facto leader of the group at the hotel. Most of the story here holds little bearing overall. It mostly introduces characters and shows you a little bit of Phoenix development of the bots, and in FOA 58, something more menacing, much bigger, something known as the Reaper. The sequence of events there is simple, though very unnerving. You go there to destroy things being used to assemble the bots. As you walk in, you see the schematics for the Reaper, as well as one built, standing in a bay. Not to worry though, it's not turned on. You go deeper inside the bunker. After you destroy some things, the building begins to fill with neurotoxins, courtesy of Phoenix. As you run out past where the Reaper is, where the Reaper was, as it is no longer where you saw it last. We shall see it again, but it has a few special systems surrounding it. It is best to finish the main game before dealing with these outliers, and I'll cover the next branch of machines with that. However, it is prudent to cover a system of the game, Rivals. Rivals are machines that can be of any type except Seeker, Ticks, Runners, and one other, and will spawn in particular regions, like farmland and all that, as well as will get a name in relation to where they reside. I've had a tank called the Terror of the Slopes, as it spawned on Himfjäll. Each rival will drop better loot and be stronger than the average version of the bot, higher health, and to a lesser extent, higher damage. They drop rare resources and as well can drop weapons of increasingly high rarity. Though this is an addition made in the Phoenix Rising DLC, though it is free for every player. I will cover these here as it seems most prudent in the system, as upon reaching level 25 and above, you can begin to receive experimental weapons. These have higher damage and often special features, though they did actually release to the main game without requiring the story DLC. Now, back to the main story. You go bunker by bunker, piecing together what Phoenix is and what he is doing. You cannot escape the island of Sweden as the bridge connecting you to the mainland is gone. However, you are able to get something. A bomb from the Russians. From Russia with love, for once. In the story, Russia does join forces with the UN to an extent, leading into some of the later developments in the game. Though we're going to talk main story before, as those additions are not related to the main story and were added years later, though they at least have some tie-ins into the main story, at least allowing for it to somewhat flow as a story. The loop per area pertains to finding safe houses to spawn in and to store equipment in as you head to the main bunker. Once there, neutralize the bots, gain access to the main bunker, and do the main missions and side missions. Side missions give gear mostly, main gives you some gear as well as the story. The final missions pertains to using the Russian bomb in FOA5, the bunker where Phoenix was born, and you see what is presumably his servers as well as a bloodied bed, indicating that perhaps Phoenix was once human, something confirmed later, and I'll show you a recording of this.
You are still here. I did not expect that. Should I fear you or be proud of you? In a way, I created you. I meant to destroy you, of course. I already had all the power I needed. But you survived, and you changed. You emerged from the water someone new. I too have changed. I have matured. I want different things. When I first emerged, I wanted all the things closest to me. I grabbed them, squeezed them, tested them, like a child. Now, I want the things furthest from me, the things out of my reach. Maybe you are one of those things. Here it is. My birthplace. But he is not here. I am not here. And now you should leave. I know why it is you came here. I know what it is you carry. They told you it was a weapon, and a weapon it is, but not like you think. They have used you because they fear me. They fear coming near me, as if I was a disease. So they sent you instead. They sent you to your death, and not mine. You should not be killed by them. Leave, quickly. is impressive that you managed to survive this long. I am amazed at how quickly you adapt. Creativity is the greatest strength of humanity. If something you need does not exist in nature, you invent it. You kill me, I return stronger. We are building new cycles, aren't we? Nothing you do is logical. I am done being polite.
The Phoenix Rising DLC starts on an offshoot of the Archipelago region you previously did not have access to, where you found the Resistance, or, well, what's left of the Resistance. In the vein of you being mere seconds too late to lend assistance, the bots are actively shooting their way into it. However, no matter how fast you are, you never see them attacking people. It's only framed as though they were fighting. The biggest moments when Phoenix shells you with a massive artillery cannon. Somehow, one person does survive this. Cal survived in the basement and sent you on a quest to run off to the Ring Fort. You fight some stuff from there, get into the lower region of the Ring Fort, and meet with someone named Veronica. She shows up later in the main story, though she also first debuts in the DLC. Veronica is one of the scientists who helped turn Phoenix into Phoenix. She designed the operating system. Phoenix was originally a human. As you both find out in FOA 5, you return to the Ring Fort and have to repel attacks. They aren't the easiest attacks to defend against, though once you are done with that, you pretty much proceed across the map, smashing through Phoenix bases with a truck strapped with C4 to blow up Phoenix's cannon. After doing this, you go into a cave/base, past it, and presumably destroy another one of its cores, indicating that Phoenix has multiple brains in multiple places. Though the idea does not seem to be developed on, this is the last story DLC, as well as is what is implied in that final mission behind the curtain. Now continuing forwards, we have the later developments, introducing the Soviet bots, the Lynx, the Firebird, and the Wolf, once more split into 3 separate classes: Scout, Soldier, and Spetsnaz. The Soviet robots, by and large, are not actually all that hard of an opponent, save for the Firebird, though we'll get to that gem. The Lynx is a little sphere thing that rolls around, similar in role to how the Runners work, with similar progression in weapons to the Runners as well. A small gun, shotgun, and a grenade launcher as it goes down the line. The Wolf is effectively the repair truck for the Lynx, capable of deploying them from the back in sets of 4, and capable of repairing them to a limited extent as well, and is armed with twin rocket pods and a Gatling autocannon. However, it is relatively unable to maneuver, and it needs to stand up in order to utilize it. And now for the most dangerous, in my opinion, the Firebird. These are the only flying opponent able to shoot back, unlike the Seeker. Using chemical weapons and a regular autocannon on the lowest difficulty version, the mid-level has explosive autocannons and the same gas, the highest has the same vein of cannons and mortars, however it can utilize thermal barracks, and they are extremely armored and hard to kill, so they are a small bit of a nightmare. The Soviet bots are hostile to the player, contrary to what they were originally designed to be, as they were supposed to take out Phoenix's machines. They have all been hacked to some extent, seemingly by Phoenix. However, they are still hostile towards all Phoenix machines. You can choose to attack the harder of the two, in your opinion, and they will not break off and fight you, though once the last bot is dead on the opposing side, the other will try and attack you. We don't fully know why the Soviet bots are here, presumably sent by the UN in conjunction with the Soviets, as they do not want the machine menace to spread. The bots were not designed to be hostile, though through an event you do not see, they now are. You see Spetsnaz camps, sometimes with story relating to bringing them over and how it went, and see that stuff is going wrong. But now that covers most of the game in its current state, at least for the most part. Might be some stuff I've missed, but go play it if you want to find out. I've spoiled enough. Oh wait, I lied. There is just one more thing. The Reaper and the Vulture. 2 more or less boss class machines, known as Tyrant. That's a fun name, Tyrant. In older versions of the game, you would spawn them in by killing rivals and not killing rivals in a given area, raising your infamy, and at player level 30, one or the other could spawn. However, more recently, Killing Rivals nets either Soviet or Phoenix coordinates. At 200 of them, you could go into a Phoenix base and go to a certain hatch to use a terminal to spawn them in that region. More reliable to get them to spawn when you want them to, though it is quite the grind to get 200 coordinate data. Now, say hello to Veronica, everyone. I told you we'd see her again. And now, I wasn't expecting to be able to show the fight with this or even show him spawned in, because it's quite the effort and I didn't record when I first fought him. However, due to sheer luck, I have it here. The Reaper is nightmarish, nearly invulnerable when it has its shielding units on, able to spawn Phoenix class runners and Apocalypse class ticks, though it uses the ticks really infrequently. Has a massive neurotoxin area of effect attack that uses its shield emitters to ignite, dealing massive damage in a thermobaric explosion. High firepower cannon and rockets as well. The Vulture is the Soviet equipment, and this one is not something I've fought yet personally. The Vulture has all the weapons of every single variant of the Firebird, massive health pool, and can drop exclusive experimental weapons up to and including dropping turrets as a weapon. Truly nightmarish. Now that we're really done with the game as it is now, end of updates as of 2025. But now, as a treat, let's talk as a retrospective about the original state of the game. The original state of the game was certainly imperfect. Quite frankly, it was buggy as hell, though it still had significant level of polish in places. And yes, the fact of the bugs being present throughout the entire lifetime of the game is true. It's not worth denying. Though even then, it was a different experience, something that wasn't like other games of the time. No health bars, limited requirements to destroy things, storytelling that wasn't just NPC talking to your face. And quite frankly, the bugs are hard to ignore, particularly when they prevent you from getting something you need/want to progress. And it certainly didn't help that they kept adding complexity without really fixing anything. A prime example of one of the bugs is this. In the end, it really is up to you if it's something that fits your style in the long run. It's a game I adore, and certainly that does affect my outlook on it. I never played the beta. I rather watched a content creator play the beta, and only got the game many years later when I actually had the hardware to play it. This definitely did have an effect on my view of the game. I found the game gorgeous, and the story had changed some, adding NPCs in the main game that were not there when I had originally seen. It was a different experience than what I had originally seen, but for the better. For another thing, just listen to the soundtrack. For some of the video, I've been using it as backing music, and in some of the clips I've shown where I'm technically in combat, you can hear it. It's awesome. has an eerie soundscape vibe, some designed for ambient, some not, though sadly the combat theme most of the time seems to be the same darn song. Unfortunate in my opinion, as it does get old after a time, but the choices of how they phase the music in, primarily when in a bunker or detected or almost detected, almost as though you the player being unsettled knowing you're almost seen, or unsettled as you're exploring a bunker with nobody home, except for a few machines. The rest of the songs are rarely heard, if at all. They're fairly distinctive, though similar in tone. A slight mechanical quality to it, almost as if it were the machines and the player's feelings combined. Though all of this takes a backseat to the player. They explore, they can choose to avoid a fight, or take a fight, set up an ambush, or be ambushed themselves. Admittedly, the most fun to be had truly takes place in the first early stages of the game, where it isn't a chore to destroy robots. It still can be killed with some tactics, but your resources and damage output is limited, so picking your fights is a must. It's what attracted me to the game so long ago. And yes, the late game you do have better gear, but fighting can become a chore, either without challenge or bone-cut crushingly hard. For example, I have several 5-crown / legendary weapons I got from destroying Apocalypse class tanks. My 50 is one of those weapons, same with my ASVAL. Excellent weapons, as the 50 can be powerful but situational, but by and large, the large Apocalypse class machines have so much health that you're dumping thousands of rounds into one machine's while dodging the effects of its attacks. Also a match of skill, more so becoming a test of logistics. One of the strategies to attack and lure machines is to set up from some propane tanks and a boombox and lure machines in, and when they're close, shoot the tank. Smaller and lower class machines get either destroyed or severely damaged by this, but the machines, not so much. Teamplay does make this better, having one EMP the machine while you lay into it, utilizing sticky flares to get the bots to attack one another, or more specifically, the target the flare is stuck to. Use fireworks to distract the targeting sectors. Heck, use the skill hacking and some binos like I've done with right skills, and you can get the bots to attack each other like I tended to do here. There is still strategy present. For sure, it has less punch to it. When you have thousands of rounds, it becomes trivial to fight even the bigger machines. However, for things like the Reaper, flip that on its head. Unfortunately, when I fought the Reaper, and when I first wrote this script, I didn't think I would be able to record it. However, I did this time around. It took me over 2 hours in dropping the difficulty down a level from medium to easy, because I was nearly out of ammunition. I dumped 150 RPGs, of which I had of a max crown, hundreds of 50 cal, hundreds of 5.56, over 1,000 7.62 into it before it died, and it took me hours, with me taking the fight more and more difficult, and in this original one, it took me thousands more rounds. The game isn't a cakewalk. It's still a good experience, but much like Halo 2, it doesn't always scale well, though admittedly the Reaper is a tyrant boss machine, and thus the scaling being more extreme is very understandable. In the end, it's not a perfect game, not by any means. It's got its ups and downs, and that's for certain. The scaling being hit or miss, the bugs, the feel of needing to sneak, leaving after some gear is acquired. It's not perfect, but the tactics can be used, and those first hours of smart gameplay are amazing. The feel of the game, the team play that can happen, well, at least if you have friends, the stellar environment and storytelling within it, the concept of a Swedish AI, the very understandable reason for the weapons being around in the homes of Swedish neutrality. It's a great concept with its imperfections, and sure, some imperfections are worse than others. I won't deny that. I, for one, feel it's an experience worth having.